Tomatoes hold the #1 spot as the most popular vegetable grown in home gardens across the country, and honestly, it probably is not even close. If I had to guess, they are likely the most popular vegetable grown in backyards around the entire world. But here is the thing about tomatoes. Despite how beloved they are, they can be surprisingly tricky to grow well. I have personally made just about every tomato growing mistake you can imagine, and today I'm going to walk you through 5 of those mistakes that I would absolutely never repeat. My hope is that by sharing what I learned the hard way, you can skip the frustration and start getting better harvests right away. The first mistake is ignoring the lowest leaves on your tomato plant, specifically the ones sitting below the first flower cluster. When your tomato seeds first germinate, those initial leaf sets are essential. They push through the soil surface and provide the early photosynthesis the young plant needs to grow upward. But once the plant is established and growing strong in your garden, those same bottom leaves become more of a liability than an asset. When you water your plants or when rain hits the ground, tiny droplets bounce off the soil surface and splash back up onto the undersides of those lowest leaves. That soil carries fungal spores and bacterial pathogens, and suddenly those ground-level leaves become a direct highway for disease to enter your plant. They are not shading your fruit. They are not contributing meaningful photosynthesis because they are buried deep in the canopy shadow. All they are doing is collecting contaminated splash. So the move here is simple. Once your plant is in the ground and growing, remove every leaf below that first flower cluster. This applies whether you are growing an indeterminate vine, a compact determinate bush, or a dwarf patio variety. Snip those lower branches off to increase airflow at the base and create distance between the soil surface and the nearest foliage. Now, many gardeners also like to strip those lower leaves before transplanting so they can bury the stem extra deep. Tomatoes have the incredible ability to sprout roots from buried stem nodes, so burying them deeper gives you a robust root system. That is a great technique, but here is the detail most people get wrong. Do not remove those leaves on the same day you transplant. When you snap off a leaf node, you create an open wound in the stem. If that wound goes straight into moist soil, you are basically rolling out a welcome mat for soil-borne diseases. Instead, remove those lower branches 3 to 5 days before transplant day. Give the plant time to heal over those wounds so the stem is sealed up before it ever touches the ground. Mistake number 2 is underfeeding your tomato plants. This catches a lot of gardeners off guard because they assume that good soil and occasional watering should be enough. But a backyard vegetable garden is nothing like a forest. A forest is a self-sustaining system with thousands of organisms recycling nutrients constantly. Canopy trees drop leaves, ground covers fix nitrogen, bark decomposes, and feeds the soil microbiome year-round. Your vegetable bed does not do any of that. It takes far more from the soil than it gives back, and if you left it unattended for 3 months, you would come back to a disaster. Tomatoes are especially hungry feeders, so you need to be putting nutrients back into the soil on a regular schedule, roughly every 2 weeks throughout the season. A solid feeding routine has 3 components. First is a balanced granular organic fertilizer, something around a 5-5-5 NPK ratio. Apply about 1.5 tablespoons per plant. Second is an organic bone meal, roughly half a tablespoon per plant. Bone meal delivers phosphorus for flowering and calcium to help prevent blossom end rot. Third, water everything in with a liquid fish emulsion mixed at about 2 to 3 tablespoons per gallon. 1 gallon of that solution should cover 5 to 6 mature plants. Do this 3-part routine at transplant and then repeat it every 2 weeks. If budget is a concern, the granular organic must stay as your foundation because it feeds the living soil biology, the fungi and bacteria that keep your garden healthy long term. but you can swap the fish emulsion for a more affordable water-soluble synthetic fertilizer or blend the two 50-50. The point is that anyone can afford to feed their tomatoes properly. Do not let cost be the reason you skip this step. Mistake number 3, and this is probably the most widespread error happening right now, is aggressively over-pruning tomato plants, especially obsessively removing every sucker. The internet has convinced gardeners that every sucker needs to be pinched off immediately. But here is what most people do not realize. That advice comes from commercial greenhouse growers who train single-stem tomato vines up strings reaching 16 to 20 feet high in controlled indoor environments, with plants packed as close as 8 to 12 inches apart. In that setting, single stemming makes perfect sense because you are maximizing vertical space in a wind-free, pest-controlled building. In your backyard, where plants top out at 6 to maybe 8 feet, single stemming actually reduces your total harvest. Every sucker you allow to grow becomes a new main stem with its own flower clusters and its own fruit. More suckers means more stems, more flowers, and more tomatoes. Every time you pinch one off, you are removing future fruit and also creating an open wound that stresses the plant and invites disease. Determinate and dwarf varieties should never have suckers removed at all beyond the ground level cleanup from mistake 1, because these plants grow to a fixed size and every cut permanently reduces their yield. The balanced approach is to prune only when you can clearly explain why. If a branch is dragging on the ground, cut it. If a section is so congested that air cannot circulate, thin it. If the plant is outgrowing its support structure, manage it. But never prune just for the sake of pruning. Mistake number 4 trips up gardeners in hot, humid climates, and it is planting tomatoes too late in the spring. Everyone knows the danger of planting too early and losing seedlings to a late frost. But in warmer regions, planting late can be just as devastating. Tomato pollen becomes sticky and clumps together when daytime temperatures consistently push above 90 degrees and nighttime temperatures stay above 70 degrees. When that happens, flowers cannot pollinate. They simply dry up, turn brown, and fall off the plant. In northern latitudes, summer heat tends to arrive in short waves with cooler breaks in between, giving tomatoes periodic windows for successful pollination. But below roughly the 38th parallel, once early June hits, the heat locks in and stays for months. If your tomatoes did not start flowering before that heat arrived, you have missed the window entirely. The strategy in these climates is to plant early, let the plants flower and set fruit during the moderate spring temperatures, and then ripen that existing fruit through the hot months. Cherry tomatoes and some heat-tolerant Roma types can sometimes push through, but beefsteaks and heirlooms will fail hard. And the 5th mistake is failing to use shade cloth during the intense summer months. This one surprises people because every nursery plant tag says full sun. But tomatoes actually originated as understory vines in Central and South American subtropical forests, where they grew beneath tree canopies in dappled, filtered light. They did not evolve to be hammered by 6 to 8 hours of direct, unfiltered summer sun every single day. That relentless ultraviolet stress breaks down the plant's natural defenses. Diseases gain a foothold, and the stress hormones the plant releases act as a beacon for insect pests. The solution is beautifully simple. Let your tomatoes soak up full spring sunshine when the ultraviolet index is still moderate and the plants need maximum energy to grow and flower quickly. Then, once summer arrives and the ultraviolet index climbs, typically around early June, install a 40% shade cloth above your garden. This creates the dappled light conditions that tomatoes are naturally adapted to thrive in. In humid coastal climates, this single change has been shown to extend productive plant life by 45 to 60 days, keeping plants mostly disease-free well into midsummer when unprotected plants would already be finished. For the vast majority of locations, 40% shade cloth is the right starting point. If you garden in the desert Southwest, you might benefit from a slightly higher percentage. And those are 5 tomato growing mistakes that, once you correct them, you will see a dramatic difference in the health and productivity of your plants. Every season is a chance to grow bigger and better than the year before, so get out there, put these lessons to work, and enjoy the best tomato harvest of your life.